Hello, well today I'm joined by Frank Cottrell-Boyce, who as you can see has written many books. Here we've got Sputnik's Guide to Life on Earth. Yeah, we've got The Astounding Broccoli Boy. We have Chitty, Bang Bang Flies Again. Framed, The Perfect Crime is a Work of Art. One of his most famous ones, Millions. There we are, The Unforgotten Coat, and hiding there we have Desirable. Missing is Cosmic.
Cosmic.
We've got that one missing. Sorry about that, Frank. But how many books in all, do you think?
I think it's 9.
9.
So it's not millions, really, by children's writer standards. But
yeah. Well, I mean, they're weighty.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about writing and how you write and so on. So let's get straight into the process. You know, I can imagine you beginning a story. Where and how does it begin?
And there's always something that kind of is a little grace, that unlocks something in your head. So we talked about Cosmic. My Cosmic is about a boy who has a growing spurt, who can pass for an adult, even though he's only 12 years old. And this was because my son had a friend who used to come and knock for him after school every day and go, "Hi, is Benedict playing out?" And we went away for a year. And when we came back, Benedict was listening for the knock at the door, and it came, but it was more like a... And then the door was like, and there's this giant mutant version of his friend standing at the doorway going, "Hello, it's Benedict playing out." And my son was like... And it was that, boys have those huge spurts. And I think it is the best place to look for a story is always, wouldn't it be great if...
Yes.
Wouldn't it be great if you had a car that could fly? Wouldn't it be great if you had a friend from space? Wouldn't it be great, if you had an aftershave that made you incredibly attractive to everybody or whatever? And kind of, wouldn't it be great if you could pass for an adult? What would you do, And Liam in that story ends up in space. So,
yes.
Which is
so that wouldn't it be great if?
Yeah.
That's quite a nice starting point, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very rich to the idea that because we often talk about stories as being the things we imagine.
Yeah.
But of course, if you say it's the things we imagine we could be, might be, what if we were? That's an exciting place to start.
And I think, wouldn't it be great if always takes you back to your own childhood, doesn't it? Because wouldn't it be great if you could fly or you're invisible? They're proper
Yes.
wishes, you know?
Yeah. So are you writing something at the moment?
I'm writing a book about robots at the moment.
Robots?
Yes.
I'm immediately thinking, wouldn't it be great if I was a robot?
Or wouldn't it be great if you found a robot and it was yours and you could do what you liked with it?
Right. So where are you with it? Can we get
Right. No, I'm kind of editing it at the moment. But because I came to see you on the train, I found how I start is I make a scrapbook.
Right.
So I kind of have
Let's
an idea.
wave that scrapbook about so people can see. It's just
so
like
it's just
a school
ordinary
lesson.
school. Well, you see, when I was in year 6, we used to do topics, and the teacher would say, choose a topic. It could be the eye or Arsenal or whatever.
I did the ducks in the park.
There you go.
I took photographs of the ducks.
There
in
you
the
go.
park.
And you got a little book to fill in.
I did.
So I've just gone back to doing that. And so I have this scrapbook, and as soon as I thought robots, wouldn't it be great if I had a robot?
Let's show the camera. Let's show a bit of that if we can.
I just start sticking
Can you
pictures
see
in.
that, Matt? Is that there?
That's a 1950s toy advert.
Yes.
And then I start kind of doing research, but I just glue it in and I make notes.
And what are in these notes? So look, we've got
Thoughts that I've had about robots.
We've got this picture of the robot, and then what's on the next page?
That is an airport departure lounge, so I'm not going to tell you why that's there, but this is great. This is a story of Eric. Eric was this robot that was built in the 1920s, late 1920s, and he's not really a robot. It was just a kind of mechanical man, but he was hugely popular around the world.
Let's show the scrapbooky nature of this. So basically, you're making a scrapbook.
Yeah, I just made a scrapbook and found old adverts, and then this is next door. I took a photograph of this. They've got a robot lawnmower. So that's sort of very different from the big old robots that I liked. And I literally just kept, not thinking about a story, just cutting out stuff to do with robots for a few weeks and seeing where it took me, some newspaper stories. I went to an exhibition at the Science Museum and just let robots sit in my head. But it was exactly what I would do in year 6. In year 6, we did these topics, and I just do the same again. And I did that. I could wrote Doctor Who. I wrote a couple of episodes of Doctor Who. Did exactly the same. Made a little notebook, sent it in.
So what are you doing underneath these photographs, and by the side of these photographs, there's quite a lot of your writing there.
Yeah.
What is that writing?
But mostly it's just, where I got that picture from or what it made me think. But I'm not trying to make up a story. I'm just collecting stuff to do with robots.
So that's quite what we might call non-fiction, really.
Yeah, information and impressions, but random. So I'm not writing a science book about robots. I'm writing down what I liked, what made me scared, what made me like them. Sometimes it's memories and stuff like that, but just collecting for a while and letting the story come to you.
Right. So I can see that. So that's almost like, I don't know, like you're sort of sitting in a field that's full of all these things.
Yeah.
So when does what we might call the storyline, the plot, where does that come from?
Mostly people shouting at me going, where's that book? When are you writing that book?
Yes.
Can we see some pages
Well, that's
now?
a bit like a teacher again, though, because they want you to finish the story for your whatever. Yeah.
But there's usually something, and then you just start, and it gets messed, and you stop, and you start again. And at the moment, I've recently finished writing it, and I'm now kind of making it good, because you do that. I think it only gets good in the edit. Yeah. And the only bit of wisdom I've got is that, because I put that scrapbook together, that must be nearly 2 years old now. And I don't really look at it once I start writing. And then this morning I was coming to see you on the train and I thought, I'll take it with me and I'll go back and find out what it was that I really loved at the beginning. So it's like, this is going right back to the beginning of my relationship with robots, because robots have become a job in the meantime, you know? And thinking about robots and writing those pages and getting it done, that becomes a job. So this is like a little capsule with all the excitement still in it.
Oh yeah.
So I go back and go, I remember this and I remember that, and why isn't that in, you know?
And if it's not giving too much away, you can stop me if it is, but what's the what if that sort of got you going? I can imagine, I know.
On this one?
Yeah, what was the what if in this case that you thought, oh, maybe if this person, child, boy, girl, whatever, did such and such, and there was...
Okay, so we live surrounded by robots that we don't really think about. You know, there are robots all the time doing your stuff online, and they're kind of invisible, and they don't look very exciting. You know, so people have robot lawnmowers and robots to let you, are managing the traffic and stuff like that. And but we forgot about like big, human, exciting robots. And I went to this exhibition at the Science Museum, and I met the guy. A lovely thing about being a writer is that you can write to anyone and go, I want to write about this, can I come and talk to you? And they'll always say yes. You know, I spoke to astronauts when I was doing Cosmic, and people are just really generous with stuff that, if you're interested in their stuff. So I wrote to the guy who was the curator of the Science Museum exhibition about robots. And he took me round before it opened and showed me and he was so excited because he'd found this old robot, Eric. And he was like a little boy, you know, they'd found it in a shed and there were bits of it all over the place. And that excitement about finding an abandoned robot, you know, bringing it back to life. He was a grown man, he was a scientist, he worked in museums, and he was just this little kid when he was talking about it. And I was thinking, but what if you were a little kid and you found a massive, like, antiquated robot that wasn't that useful but was very cool? You know,
yes.
What would you do with it?
Oh, I'm beginning
what
to.
Use
Yes,
would it be,
I'm with
you
you on this now. Yes, that's right. So that's that trigger moment, isn't it? That's where you've got engaged and you've got.
So it's like a friend. I mean, like once you start thinking about it, there's lots of stories that I like, because the other thing I think is that you steal from other people, and so there's lots of stories about children finding a secret friend. You know, E.T.
Yes.
Or a little dog that you're hiding, or Kez or a Kestrel, but they're usually quite small and manageable.
What's the one with the film with the Hayley Mills and Alan Bates? What's it called?
Whistle Down the Wind.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Or the Machine Gunners.
The Machine Gunners,
the Robert Westall book, Finding
book.
the pilot.
So stories about kids who find something and want to keep it secret.
Yeah.
That's quite a well-worn path. But I think what nobody's done before is something that would be really hard to keep this thing secret, because it's 7 foot high and it weighs a ton.
Does it make noises?
And it makes a lot of noise, and it's very set in its ways,
yes,
you know.
Good.
So you can't really kind of say, just get behind the couch, or you know, or I'll feed you scraps if you hide in the wheelie bin or anything like that.
Is it naughty?
It doesn't mean to be, but it's incredibly destructive. It's a piece of industrial plant, you know. It's like, you know.
So that's fantastic. You've got a wonderful situation. Is it set in the now?
Yeah.
And then again, without giving too much away, I can imagine something might go seriously wrong.
Really wrong.
Yes, I thought it might. So we need that in stories. Do you call that jeopardy, peril? What do you call it in your mind?
Yeah, I think jeopardy is like what people always use. And I think there's lots of kinds of Jeopardy, isn't there? There's the Jeopardy of like physical danger, which I loved when I was a kid reading those books. You want that adventure,
yes. Someone hanging from a cliff,
destruction, yes. all that. Yeah, cliffhanger. Yeah. You know, that's why we say cliffhanger, because it is cool.
Yeah. So anyway, we won't give it away, but there's something quite.
There's a reason
big.
that airports are on.
Oh
page
right.
2.
Yes. Okay. We'll keep that closed. That's the secret. But yes, airport. Yeah. Remember that, folks. Yes. I see. Lovely. Very good. So that pattern that you've just described, have you done that with the other books? I mean, you don't.
Yeah, not so much with Millions, because I had the idea for Millions and I kind of mulled it over for a long time. But I've always tried to do the scrapbook thing because it worked in Year 6, and Year 6 is when I started thinking about words. And before I started writing books, I was writing films, which is fun. I love writing films, but it's very serious. You know, there's lots of meetings and diagrams and notes and sheets. And I thought, I want to really love doing this. I want it to be fun, you know, because people can tell if you've had fun doing it, you know. And if you're not having fun, why do it?
Yes.
You know, there are easier ways to make a living.
Yes.
So I was so happy in Year 6, so I just thought I'll take myself back to Year 6.
Now, just one thing. You're famous for writing very good dialogue, and your dialogue is very good. How do you do that? How do you write good dialogue? I know sometimes I've met boys and girls in schools, and they got quite good plot lines, but when it comes to the dialogue, they sometimes find that quite difficult.
Yeah.
So, how do you make the conversations that people are having in your stories so that they're interesting and exciting?
I would read it out loud. Because if it doesn't feel right in your mouth, then it's not right. You know, I think reading aloud, you are the master of this, aren't you? You know, that something really comes to life when you read it out to people. And the great privileges of being a children's writer is that you get a lot of time reading to classes and reading to big groups of children. So I think you get used to being able to hear it. And I think sometimes maybe adult writers don't hear it in their head in the same way because it hasn't got that point at which
you've got your own children, but also you must be quite good at remembering the kinds of conversations you had with your mates at school. And then also, are you out there listening to people a bit?
And also, like, I'm from Liverpool. It's a very talky city, and it's a city where people like to throw in a word that you're not expecting into a conversation. You know, and I've never stopped believing, you know, that unexpected word is always a good.
And you're listening on buses and things?
Yeah. I live opposite the Merseyrail station, so I hardly ever get in a car. So I'm on that's the little local railway. So I'm on that a lot. That's Chekhov, isn't it? Right. Someone said to Chekhov, "How do you become a writer?" And he said, "Travel third class." And that's all you need to know, you know.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, well, it's lovely. So we've got a lovely picture of you writing and how you write, and I love this scrapbook. I'm going to steal that. No, I won't. It's all right. So now let's imagine that we're in a classroom, and we've got a teacher, we've got a class, and they're all sitting there waiting. They got their bits of paper, they got their pens in their hands. Yes, look, yes, it's just the teacher's situation. We're sometimes put in this situation, aren't we, where we're asked to help a class begin to write something and so on. What would you do?
Detonator for...
How would you get them, how would you get a class sort of interested in the idea? Come on, we can write something. It's hard.
I think get them to talk first, because I think we put far too much emphasis on writing things down.
And which is a mad, getting to the writing too quickly.
Yeah, I think maybe talk a story first. I think that's a good thing. I think because once you start talking, a lot of the things that are very difficult about writing are actually ingrained in you if you let them out. It's like in a good story, everything has got to be in exactly the right place for it to work. If it's going to make you laugh or cry, everything's got to be in the right place. But that's true of a joke. You know, if you can tell a joke, you can tell a story. So I think that discipline of talking out loud and knowing that you're not losing people's attention. So I would get people to try and tell a story rather than write one down.
And then would you just say any story? Would you say somebody's maybe told you a story, your father, your uncle, your mum?
Yeah, I think that thing about telling, you know, like at the beginning of this, I talked about the day that Luke came and he'd changed. Can you tell a story like that when something funny happened to you at the zoo or on a school trip, or who did the wrong thing in school, you know?
So they've each got an anecdote. So everyone's going to tell an anecdote.
Yeah, an anecdote. That's what I'm.
That's all right. I know.
Yeah.
And then, what are we going to say? Write that down, or are you going to say see the potential in the anecdote for something odd or strange? Or
yeah, I wouldn't write the anecdote. I get people to tell an anecdote is quite good, I think, and then maybe maybe someone who's got a good anecdote might be a good starting point for stories,
Oh,
you know,
right,
other people's
yes.
stories.
So maybe share some of these.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then say, oh, that's
Because
somebody
that-
once told me that all stories are to do with someone stuck up in a tree, and it's how to get out of the tree, and whether they get help from somebody or whether they get somebody stopping them from doing something. And then in quite a lot of children's books at any rate, you kind of get back somehow or other home. So you start off by being stuck.
Yeah.
There's a dilemma, there's a problem, so you're stuck up a tree,
Yeah.
metaphorically speaking. All right, and then it's how you get out,
Yeah.
and you have to find people to help, or there's some people don't want you to get out of the tree,
Yeah.
they want to keep you there or cause you problems as you're trying to get out, the rest of it. So maybe, so if people are telling stories, quite often the stories we remember is where there's a little bit of a little bit of a moment that
Yeah,
is a
something's
bit of
changed.
a problem, or
I mean, I'm working on Sputnik's Guide to Life at the moment for DreamWorks, so we're doing an animated film of it, and they have this like sheet of tests and like starting points and things. And the starting point story thing is, one day there was a, and every day she, but one day, and it's the ... You know, so once upon a time there was a whatever, and every day this whatever did this, but one day something changed.
yes.
So it's that drawing in that world, and
So the one day thing, and that could be a change, which has got to be some sort of a problem. Otherwise,
Yeah.
we're kind of not that interested,
you know,
probably.
once
So-
upon a time there was a knight. Every day he oiled his armor, but one day he forgot, and there you go.
and he was stuck.
Yeah, there
and
you
there we
go.
are.
Yeah, you're
That's a
off.
story. We got
Yeah.
the stuck knight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think his armor's got rusty as well, hasn't
yeah,
it? Yeah.
yeah.
I can see him. Yeah, great. I see. Lovely. And then, talking of being stuck, if you get stuck while you're writing, how do you get de-stuck?
Yeah, I'm the last person, because it's taken me years to write this book, and look, yeah,
Okay, so if it took you years, this most recent book,
yeah,
when you got stuck, what did you do? Go for a walk? Take the dog for a walk?
yeah. I kind of didn't notice I was stuck at first. Yeah, you just keep. I think you've just got to keep going, you know. But I mean, there's things you can do, aren't there? You can change the point of view. That's always interesting. So if you're telling the story about the night he was stuck, and you get stuck, why don't you change it to the guy with the oil can, or the
Or the
squire,
dog that came in and weed on your leg?
or the other night he was waiting to fight him, or yeah, whatever.
Change the point of view.
Yeah, where is he? Yeah.
Yes.
So change the point of view. That's
Shakespeare
what I'm
does that.
saying. Yeah. all
Switches the
time.
point of view. You suddenly see the thing from another point of
all
view.
the time.
Yeah.
And he's just always saying, like, what's the best thing that can happen in this scene, isn't he? He doesn't really think through what
Yes,
it does to the overall
yeah.
thing.
Actually, what's the best thing that could happen next is quite a
Or
good
the
trigger
worst.
question.
What's the worst
Yes.
thing? Yeah.
Yes, what's the worst, what's the best?
And for that to work, you've got to kind of know your character a bit. So it's like, what does this character really dread? You know, you were talking about Jeopardy before. But maybe your character doesn't dread falling off the cliff so much as being late for that thing, and now he's on the edge of the cliff. Or do you know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
What's the worst? What's their secret, most terrible fear? And you've got to make that.
And what if another character knows that
What
that's
they know it,
his
yeah.
or her fear?
So they're great questions.
Mm.
What's she really afraid of? What does she really want?
Yeah.
What's the worst that could happen to her?
Lovely. Very good. So the book's finished and done.
No, it's not finished and done. No,
Bit
it's
more
not finished.
editing to
There's
do.
Quite a bit more editing to do.
And what does that mean, editing?
Well, it means that's the fun bit, isn't it? That's the bit when you kind of know you've
No,
got some. Oh,
I
I
hate
love
it.
it so much. I love it. Why do you hate that?
I don't like reading what I've written.
Oh, I hate reading what I've written. I do hate reading what I've written. And that is a problem for me, because I will kind of go, oh, it would be much better if this happened, and I'll rewrite everything without going back to look.
Oh, wow.
And then my editor will go, why have you done that?
You've thrown away all the good stuff.
Yeah, you needed to change 3 sentences and you've written like 300 new pages. It's like, okay. But, you know, I took my, do you know the book, The Borrowers?
Mm.
Yeah, which is a brilliant, brilliant book. I took my daughter to Seven Stories when it opened, which is a museum in Newcastle that at the time had manuscripts on display. And they had Roald Dahl's manuscripts, which are all on yellow paper with a sharpened pen. And they had the Harry Potter manuscript, which is really moving. It was just like on a Ryman's pad with coffee stains on it. And she hadn't, do you know what I mean? You could tell it had been written in a cafe, and she was very excited. But the manuscript for The Borrowers was there. And one of the things I love about The Borrowers is the names of the characters and
Arietti, is it?
Arietti.
Yeah.
But there was crossing out on this manuscript, and my daughter saw it first, and she went, "Dad, come and look at this. The Borrowers used to be rubbish," and it was called Under the Carpet, which is a rubbish name.
Yeah.
And the characters' name, I can't remember what the characters' names are now, but they weren't very
Sort of
interesting.
John and Mary, sort of quite ordinary names,
Yeah,
weren't they?
yeah,
Or
dull,
Frank.
dull names.
Sorry, no, I didn't mean that.
Yeah, but they were dull names, and she crossed them out and put Pod, Arietti, Homity, and you could feel it come into life.
Yes.
In the edit, it comes to life in the edit, you know.
Yeah.
For me, anyway.
Very good. So you've still got a bit more to do of that.
Yeah, afraid so.
Yeah. In fact, I'm distracting you at this very moment.
Yeah, that's why I want to go. I want to make sure I do something on the train on the way home.
Very good. Well, Frank Cottrell-Boyce, thanks ever so much indeed. Thank you for giving us your insights into writing.
This was a joy. Thank you so much.